The day my husband's will was read, my son smiled. He got the house. I got the tool shed. He leaned over and said, almost kindly, "Well, at least you'll have somewhere to keep your gardening gloves." That night, I stood alone in that shed, dust in the air, gravel under my shoes. And when I reached behind the pegboard and felt something that didn't belong, I realized my husband hadn't left me something small. He'd left me something hidden. And my son had no idea what was waiting behind that wall. Before I tell you what was behind that wall, thank you for sitting with me. If you're watching from somewhere in the world, tell me your state in the comments. I always wonder where these stories land. And if quiet strength means something to you, you're welcome to subscribe. Now let me take you back to the day everything shifted. My name is Susan. I was married for 43 years. Robert wasn't flashy. He didn't chase big titles or bigger risks. He believed in paid-off trucks, sturdy roofs, and showing up when you said you would. We built our house in Arizona when Jonathan was 5, back when summer nights felt slower. Back when we still counted pennies at the grocery store. Robert worked construction. Long days. Hands always rough. I kept the books at a dental office 3 miles from home. We weren't wealthy, but we were steady. Sunday pancakes, Thursday laundry, coffee before sunrise on the back patio. Robert drank his black. I needed cream. 2 sugars. The tool shed sat behind the house, small, faded red, sun-bleached and quiet. Robert built it himself, the summer Jonathan turned 12. Said a man needed a place to think. Jonathan used to follow him out there, little sneakers crunching on gravel. "Hand me the wrench, buddy." I can still see them. Robert crouched over a workbench, Jonathan watching like he was witnessing something sacred. Back then, my son adored him. Somewhere along the way, that softened. Jonathan grew polished, ambitious, not cruel, just impatient. He left for California. Real estate, luxury developments, glass towers with views. At dinner, he'd say things like, "Dad, you could have made so much more if you'd taken risks." Robert would wipe his hands on a napkin and smile. "I made enough." Jonathan would laugh. "Enough is average." Robert never argued. But I saw the way his jaw tightened. When Robert's heart started failing, Jonathan flew in twice. Both visits were efficient. He took calls in the hospital hallway, talked about markets while nurses adjusted IV lines. One night, after Jonathan left early for a flight, Robert squeezed my hand. "Promise me something," he whispered. "What?" "Don't let him rush you." I thought he meant funeral arrangements or paperwork. I didn't understand. After Robert passed, the house felt hollow. I folded his flannel shirts and placed them in drawers. I couldn't bring myself to empty. His boots stayed by the back door for weeks. Jonathan handled the will reading, said it would be clean. We sat in a quiet office downtown. The attorney adjusted his glasses. To Jonathan Harris, I leave the primary residence and associated investment accounts. Jonathan's shoulders eased. Relief, not grief. And to my beloved wife, Susan Harris, I leave the detached workshop, the tool shed, and its contents. There was a pause. Jonathan let out a short breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "Dad always loved that shed," he said. He squeezed my shoulder lightly. "It's okay, Mom. I'll take care of you." I nodded, but something inside me went very still. That evening, Jonathan walked through the house, measuring walls, tapping them, talking about opening up the space. "You can move into a retirement condo," he said casually. "This place is too much for you alone." Too much. I ran my hand along the kitchen counter, the same counter where I'd iced his birthday cakes. "I need time," I said. He checked his watch. "I've already spoken to contractors." Already. That night, I packed a suitcase, not because I agreed, but because I understood something quietly devastating. I wasn't being included. I was being repositioned. As I stepped into the backyard, I looked at the shed. Faded, red, ordinary, apparently worthless. Jonathan's words echoed in my head. At least you'll have somewhere to keep your gardening gloves. I didn't feel angry. I felt dismissed. And that kind of dismissal doesn't shout, it settles in your chest. I unlocked the shed door. The hinges groaned. Inside, the tools hung in perfect rows. Measured. Balanced. Robert never did anything without intention. And as I stood there, breathing in dust and motor oil, I began to wonder if this was intention too. But I didn't know yet. I only knew one thing. The peace I thought I had left was about to break, and I was about to find out why. The next morning, Jonathan changed the locks. No argument, no raised voice. Just a locksmith's van in the driveway and a new brass key turning where the old one used to fit. I have to protect the asset, he said. As the legal owner. I stood on the porch holding a cardboard box of photo albums. My house. The desert air was already warm. A neighbour's dog barked in the distance. Jonathan avoided my eyes. I'll have movers come tomorrow for the rest of your things. Like I was clearing out a storage unit. He handed me a small ring of keys. You've got the shed. He smiled the way people do when they think they're being reasonable. Then he drove away. Gravel popped under his tires. I walked slowly to the backyard. The shed looked smaller in daylight, paint chipped, door slightly crooked. I unlocked it. The smell hit first. Dust, oil, old wood. Robert's hammer still hung on the pegboard, perfectly level. He used to say, if it's worth building right. I sat on the stool by the workbench, ran my thumb over a groove in the wood where he used to rest his coffee mug. It felt like sitting in a room no one else valued. That afternoon, Jonathan called. His tone was brisk. I spoke to a realtor. For what? I asked. The house. I'm flipping it. Market's strong. I stared at the far wall of the shed, the faint outline of where Robert once measured lumber. So soon? I asked. It's just property, Mom. Don't make it emotional. Just property. He didn't remember the treehouse Robert built in the backyard, or the crack in the tile from the night we dropped a pan laughing, or the pencil marks in the hallway where we tracked his height every birthday. Just property. I'll have the movers there at 8, he continued. Try to have things sorted. Try. The line clicked off. I sat there for a long time, a woman who had lived in one house for 43 years, now reduced to try to have things sorted. That night, I dragged an old camping cot into the shed. The metal legs scraped against concrete. I laid down without changing my clothes. The wind tapped softly against the tin roof. I watched the shadows from the single bulb sway. I replayed the years, the tuition payments, the refinance. The nights Robert worked overtime when Jonathan's first business deal fell apart. He'll learn, Robert would say. We never kept score. Parents don't. But lying there in that narrow cot, I realized something. Jonathan didn't think he was cruel. He thought he was efficient. He thought I would adjust. Like furniture. My eyes drifted to the pegboard again. Everything aligned, even the screws, except one, near the lower right corner. It caught the light differently. Slightly newer, slightly brighter. I sat up, walked over, touched it. Robert never mixed hardware. Never. I grabbed a screwdriver, turned the screw slowly. The pegboard shifted. Just a fraction. My breath stalled. I pulled harder. The board lifted away from the wall. Behind it was metal, smooth, clean. With a keypad, the shed suddenly felt smaller, quieter. He didn't tell me about this. Why? I stared at the numbers, our anniversary. I pressed them in. The keypad blinked. Then, a soft click. The wall moved, and, as it opened, I understood something that had nothing to do with money. My husband hadn't left me something small. He had left me something deliberate. And in that moment, I knew I would not stay silent. Not this time. The wall didn't swing wide. It eased open, quiet, controlled, just like Robert. Inside, there wasn't clutter. There was order, metal shelving, labeled binders, lock boxes stacked evenly, a small fireproof safe bolted into concrete. I stepped in slowly. The air felt different back there. Still, intentional. For a moment, I didn't touch anything. I just stood there, breathing. Then I reached for the first binder. Rental property, Flagstaff. Paid in full. Next binder. Duplex, Prescott. Next. Commercial lot, Tucson. Each purchased years ago. So for the ever. Each titled under a trust, transferring to me. Not Jonathan, me. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from clarity. I opened the safe. Precious metal certificates, vault receipts, conservative investments, no leverage, no risk exposure, no applause, just stability. At the bottom of the safe lay a sealed envelope, my name written in Robert's steady handwriting. I sat on the floor before opening it. The concrete was cool beneath my palm. My dearest Susan, if you found this, then you found the wall. And if you found the wall, it means Jonathan moved faster than he should have. I closed my eyes for a second. He knew. I kept reading. I didn't leave you the house because houses create pressure. I didn't leave you liquid accounts because they invite persuasion. Jonathan is capable, but he mistakes expansion for strength. I needed you protected from that. The shed is not a shed. It is insulation. Everything behind this wall is yours. Free from negotiation, free from leverage. If Jonathan becomes steady and kind, you may choose to share. If he does not, you will never need to ask anyone for security again. I lowered the letter. The shed felt different now, not small, anchored. I leaned my head against the wall and let the silence settle. He hadn't punished our son. He had removed temptation and given me agency. The next morning, the movers came. They carried out boxes like they were clearing debris. One of them asked politely, "You moving far?" "Not far," I said. "Just smaller." I folded one of Robert's old scarves before placing it in a box. Smoothed it carefully. That night I stayed in the shed again, but I didn't feel displaced anymore. I felt positioned. 3 days later, Jonathan called. His tone was sharper. "Mum, did Dad have other holdings? I'm reviewing statements and something doesn't add up." I traced my finger over the grain of the workbench. "Your father handled most investments," I said evenly. "That's not what I asked." "No," I agreed softly. He exhaled. "I've already started renovations. Structural stuff came up. It's more than expected." Of course it was. Robert had warned him about aging beams, roof reinforcement, termite treatment. Jonathan dismissed it as overcautious. Now it was expensive. "I just need a short-term bridge," he continued. There it was. The familiar rhythm: overextend, encounter resistance, request rescue. "How much?" I asked. He named the number. Large, but manageable for me. "I'll think about it," I said. Silence stretched between us. "You're not angry, are you?" he asked suddenly. I looked around the shed, at the hidden wall, at the quiet protection Robert had built. "No," I said. "I wasn't angry. I was aware." That night I reviewed every document. I didn't rush. I didn't react. For 43 years, I had trusted my husband's decisions. Now, I trusted my own. Jonathan believed the house made him powerful. Square footage, glass walls, impressive renovations. But power isn't noise. Power is endurance. And the tool shed. The tool shed was endurance. If you're still listening, thank you. Because this is the quiet part, the part where nothing explodes. Where a woman doesn't scream, she just sees clearly. Jonathan thought the house proved he had made it, but the shed proved I would never need to beg. And that's when I began to think, very carefully. I didn't call Jonathan back the next day, not to punish him, to pause. I made coffee in a chipped mug and sat at the workbench with Robert's letter beside me. The shed was quiet. Dust floated through a thin beam of morning light. I read the line again. If Jonathan becomes steady and kind, you may choose to share. Steady, kind, not impressive, not ambitious. Steady. I called the attorney listed in the trust documents. Patricia Langford. Her voice was calm, direct. I need to understand what I control, I told her. Everything, she said gently. Your husband structured it that way. We met 2 days later. I brought every folder from the hidden wall. She read without interruption, nodded occasionally. He was thorough, she said. Yes, I answered. He always was. She walked me through it slowly. Rental income streams, conservative allocations, precious metals in insured storage. No exposure to Jonathan's renovation loans, no cross-liability. The structure was clean, quiet, intentional. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just signing papers beside my husband. I was asking questions, understanding, choosing. That evening, Jonathan called again. They're pushing, Mom. The bank won't extend much longer. I've spoken with an advisor, I said. There was a long pause. You have an advisor? Yes. The silence shifted. He could hear it in my voice. I wasn't scrambling. I wasn't afraid. I was steady. A week later, I drove by the house. Tarps flapped in the wind. Drywall dust coated the driveway. The porch light flickered even in daylight. It didn't look like an upgrade. It looked like disruption. Jonathan stood inside with contractors arguing about permits. He looked smaller in that gutted living room. Not physically, just exposed. He saw me, surprised. Mom, why are you here? I wanted to see it. He gestured around. It'll be incredible when it's done. I touched the empty wall where our family photos used to hang. It was incredible before, I said softly. He didn't answer. I didn't mention the trust. Not yet. I didn't mention the properties, or the vault, or the quiet security humming beneath my feet. Because this wasn't about revealing power. It was about watching behavior. If I wrote him a check now, he would feel confirmed, not corrected. That night, I returned to the shed, sat on the stool, ran my fingers along the edge of the hidden panel. My husband left me the tool shed, I whispered. It sounded small, but it wasn't. He left Jonathan visibility. He left me insulation. I began preparing carefully. I hired a property manager for the rentals, met with a financial planner, shifted a portion of funds into stable instruments. No speculation, no risk, just foundation. I moved my belongings into a modest condo nearby. Clean, quiet, manageable. Jonathan texted me. Where are you staying? Somewhere comfortable, I replied. He didn't like not knowing. 2 days later, he showed up at the shed. No appointment, just urgency. You're really living here? He asked. For now. You don't have to do this. I almost smiled. He still believed smaller meant suffering. I'm fine, I said. He paced once, then stopped. The bank is escalating. I need help. There it was again. Not apology, not reflection, just escalation. I'll help you, I said calmly. Relief flooded his face too quickly, but not the way you expect. His shoulders tightened. What does that mean? It means this ends differently. I didn't explain further. Not yet. He stared at me, trying to calculate, trying to regain footing. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one adjusting to him. The stage was set. All I had to do was wait. I asked Jonathan to meet me at the shed. Not the house, not a bank office. The shed. He arrived in a pressed shirt, jaw tight, phone still in his hand. He looked at the faded red door like it offended him. "You could have picked somewhere more comfortable," he said. "I did," I replied. We sat on the same two wooden stools Robert and I once used for coffee. I slid a folder across the workbench, neatly tabbed. Clean. Final. Jonathan opened it. His eyes moved quickly. Loan settlements, lien resolutions, structured debt payoff. Then he slowed. "Property must be listed for sale within 30 days, he read aloud. Yes. Trust oversight for 5 years. Yes. Major investments subject to review. He looked up. "You don't trust me." I met his eyes. "I don't trust your patterns." Silence. He flipped another page. "You'll cover everything," he said quietly. "Yes. And I lose the house. You lose the illusion." His jaw flexed. "That house was proof I'd made it." "No," I said gently. "It was proof you'd stretched." He stood up abruptly, walked to the pegboard, ran his fingers across the hanging tools. "You're enjoying this," he muttered. "No," I answered. "I'm finishing it." He turned back toward me. "Why are you so calm?" "Because I'm not afraid," I thought, but I didn't say it. Instead, I stood, walked to the lower right corner of the pegboard, removed the mismatched screw, pulled the board aside. The metal panel gleamed in the soft light. Jonathan froze. "What is that?" I entered the code. The wall opened. The shelves, the files, the safe, everything quiet and undeniable. He stepped forward slowly. "This was here the whole time?" "Yes. And you let me think. I didn't correct you." He stared at the property deeds. "The vault receipts, the structured trust documents. You had this," he said. "And you stayed in here?" "Yes." "Why?" I held his gaze. "Because I needed to see who you would be without it." The words didn't land loudly. They landed deeply. He looked like he'd been stripped of something. Not pride, protection. "I asked you for help," he said. "You told me to move out," I replied. He looked down. That silence was different now. No defensiveness, just awareness. "I thought I was being efficient," he said quietly. "You were being entitled." He swallowed. Wind tapped gently against the tin roof. He walked out of the hidden space and sat down. No pacing, no arguments. Just sitting. "I didn't realize," he began, then stopped. "I didn't rescue him from finishing the sentence. I didn't realize how it felt." "That's the part that matters," I said. We sat there a long time. The shed felt smaller again, but steadier. "I'll sell the house," he said finally. Not dramatic, not angry, just certain. "I'll accept the oversight." His voice wasn't bitter. It was tired, but honest. 2 weeks later, we signed the agreement. The house sold 3 months after that. Debts cleared, trust activated. Jonathan moved into a smaller townhome. No grand staircase, no echoing ceilings, just manageable walls. He started meeting regularly with a financial counselor, at first stiffly, then consistently. I didn't monitor him. I didn't lecture. Structure handled the money. Time handled the rest. Months later, he came back to the shed. No suit, no urgency, just jeans. He sat beside me quietly. "I get it now," he said. "Get what?" "Why Dad left you the tool shed." I waited. "He wasn't punishing me," Jonathan continued. "He was protecting you. Yes. And maybe forcing me to grow up." The shed was quiet again, but it didn't feel small. It felt like a line drawn. "I'm sorry," he said finally. Not rushed, not defensive, just steady. I nodded. That's enough. And in that silence, I finally felt free. When my husband left me the tool shed, my son thought it was an insult. He thought it meant small, but it meant protected. The house looked impressive. It had height, glass, visibility, but it carried pressure, debt, expectation. The shed looked ordinary. faded paint, rusty hinges, but it carried insulation, security, choice. Robert understood something I was still learning. Love doesn't always look generous. Sometimes it looks strategic. Sometimes it looks quiet. Sometimes it looks like a tool shed. I didn't win. Jonathan didn't lose. We both changed. He learned that expansion isn't strength, and I learned that silence isn't weakness. I still keep the shed, not because of what's hidden behind the wall, but because of what it represents: boundaries, clarity, self-respect, peace. And peace is worth more than any house. Have you ever been underestimated in your own family? Tell me in the comments. I truly read them. If this story reminded you of someone who needs it, share it with them. And if quiet strength means something to you, you're always welcome here. We'll talk again soon.